Hello, welcome to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast where we talk about movies off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 Best Horror Movies of All Time list. My name is Clay, and with me as always is Amanda. How you doing, Amanda?
I'm good. I'm here with my hand crank flashlight, and I'm ready to have an alligator explode through some stairs at my face.
It is Rotten Horror Picture Show Summer Edition,
Woo!
Where we are going down to the belly of Florida.
I thought you were going to say down to the basement.
Down to the well, I mean, Florida is kind of the basement of the United States.
Basement.
For a variety of reasons. Today we are talking about a little movie called Crawl from 2019, number 127 on our list with an 84% Rotten Tomatoes score. Amanda, had you seen Crawl before?
No, this was one of the ones that came out. I think I was like in the depths of my school trauma, and I just wasn't doing anything or going anywhere or seeing any movies. But I did want to see this when it came out, so I'm excited that I have now.
Yeah, this is one where I guess the trailer must have been good.
Yeah.
Because me, Caitlin, Pat, and Meredith went to see this, and I was like, that's kind of, how did we manage to get four of us to go see this movie, this alligator movie?
I was going to say, at least two of the people you just named in this group, I would expect to kind of be like, no, I'm going to skip that one.
Yeah. But we saw it in the theater. I actually, as I was thinking about it, I was like, was this the last movie I saw in the theater before COVID? But no, Invisible Man was the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised. Had a great time.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to talking about this movie.
Same.
So we're going to play the trailer for you. Maybe you guys can judge whether or not the trailer was really good.
I'm sure it's great when you can't see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, it's like, alligator movie. I'm sure that's going to be whatever. So, but I'm trying to figure out how we ended up, unless it was just the B moviness of it, where it's like, let's go see the alligator movie.
I think that might have been part of it.
Yeah.
Like I remember at the time, I think it also came out and was kind of a summer movie, and I think people were just ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, play the trailer, and then we are going to talk about Crawl.
The state of Florida has issued a Category 5 hurricane warning. All residents must evacuate immediately. Grab your families, your loved ones, and get out.
Dad!
We won't be able to come for you.
Dad! Dad! Yeah. Oh my God. What happened?
Are you hurt?
I'm fine. Hello, can anybody hear me? I'm trapped with my father in our house in Coral Lake. Please send help.
Billy!
Wait, down here.
Pete, you hear that? In less than an hour, we'll be underwater. Banging on the pipes blurs their senses. I can distract them for you. You got this! You need to go now.
I'm not leaving you here. Come on, you son of a bitch!
Okay, Crawl from 2019, directed by Alexander Aja, or I think it's Aja, or Aja, depending on where he's from. I think he's French. He directed High Tension and the Hills Have Eyes remake.
Okay.
He has some experience with underwater creatures because he also did Piranha 3D.
Oh.
Which I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
No.
it's a lot better than it has any right. It's a lot of fun.
I'm sensing a trend.
This movie was actually produced by Sam Raimi.
I did know that. And I think that might have been one of the reasons I was like, okay, all right, let's give this one a shot.
Yeah. I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff, and he was there on the set, like looking at stuff. So he was pretty. It seemed like he was pretty hands on, unless he was just there for a photo op. But written by Michael and Sean Rasmussen, who apparently I learned yesterday are Boston guys. I don't know any more than that, but I guess they're from the area.
Cool.
And starring Kaya. This is going to be a tough one. It's a very tough name for a very white girl. Kaya Scolodario. I believe she's half Brazilian, though, so that's probably where that comes from. Barry Pepper, Morford Clark, which caught me off guard. Ross Anderson, and Gators.
All gators all the time.
Florida Gators, both school mascot and literal. Amanda, what happens in Crawl?
When a massive hurricane hits her Florida town, young Haley ignores the evacuation orders to search for her missing father, Dave. After finding him gravely injured in their family home, the two of them become trapped by the rapidly encroaching floodwaters. With the storm strengthening, Haley and Dave discover an even greater threat than the rising water level, a relentless attack from a pack of gigantic alligators.
Nice.
Yeah, succinct, simple, to the point.
The first part of that sounded like a Billy Joel song or something.
Yeah. Young Haley in Florida searching for her missing father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Clay, some things you'll find in Crawl include plumbing is a superpower.
Yep.
Got to know which one's the wet wall.
Honestly, I was watching it this time, and I was thinking about this as a writer, right? And when that line came up, I was like, I don't even know if I would know to ask about that. Like maybe, like you're writing this thing. I don't know anything about plumbing. I guess that's something you'd have to look up and be like, well, what's a good way for them to get out of here? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's called the wet wall. That's fun. But it's just one of those details.
Or somebody's uncle, was in the plumbers union and knows all this shit.
Uncle Dave can tell you how to escape a basement
there
using
you
the
go.
pipes. Yes.
A perfect dog.
Yes. Perfect dog who is played, the tension with the dog played very, very well.
Yes.
They make you think that whole movie that dog is going to get it, but he does not, and it's very satisfying.
Thank God. I would have not wanted to cover this movie if that dog had died. Gonna be honest. You'll also find Florida Man. Mm-hmm. Multiple Florida men.
Multiple. Very tasty.
Stealing an ATM. Just being Florida Man.
Yep.
Just a flesh wound.
Yeah. This movie has a shocking level of gore that is a lot more shocking to the people watching than watching the movie than the people it's happening to.
People it's happening to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Multiple wounds that
are pretty gnarly and should take someone out completely, and they're just like, all right, climb the stairs, let's go. Mm-hmm. A face full of spiders.
Honestly, scariest part of the movie.
Yeah, I had a visceral reaction to that one. That was like the one where I was like, yep, can't identify with that feeling.
Of all the things that happen in this movie, that's the one that could happen to you tonight.
Yes.
If you go into your basement to get your laundry, no matter where you live.
You were looking so pointedly right at me.
Yep.
Knowing my laundry's in a basement, you monster.
Yeah, I'm trying to ruin your night.
And of course you'll find questionable parenting.
Yes. I feel like it's been a couple since we've had a questionable parenting.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like, what did we do recently? I think a couple of our Patreon ones maybe didn't have so much questionable parenting.
I think there was questionable parenting in The Fly. Host, not really. I guess before that was In the Earth, which has question. Yeah, so it's been coming and going.
In and out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what you'll find.
So, Crawl. First of all, what is your feeling on
alligators?
Water-based monster movies that are like the descendants of Jaws? Because I feel like Jaws is everything that comes after Jaws that has a body of water and a creature that kills people is going to be compared to Jaws in one way or another.
Sure, and it probably owes something to Jaws.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Piranha 3D, for example, has the
seminal film Piranha 3D
has a whole bit they do with Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so it's like there's always some sort of eventual callback, but anybody who had a movie like that come out after Jaws was labeled a ripoff or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you feel about water creature movies?
You know, it's funny because Jaws is one of my top like 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love Jaws. I don't really seek out other water-based creature movies.
Sure.
Like I there's a couple of the ones that are like shark-based but more in reality that like what is the one I'm thinking of where the 2 people are just like stranded out in the
open
ocean?
water.
Yes. I kept wanting to say deep water and I knew that wasn't right.
I think that is a movie, just not.
I think that is a movie that exists, but it was not the one I was thinking of. I don't know. I think they're fun monster flicks, and I think they're fun to play with because there's so much you can do visually with them. But if you're asking if I find them particularly scary, not really.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
The ocean fear is like not my thing. I'm just like not. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an extraordinarily white person and I just have to hide under shade at all times. So I just know I'm never going to be in these situations, but maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I think the reason that Jaws works so well and the ones that come after it maybe don't is because you're not going to go on vacation to the beach and run into a school of flesh-eating piranhas.
Right,
or most of the time, you're not going to go on vacation to the beach or wherever and run into an alligator. Yeah. Or, for instance...
I have always wanted to see an alligator, like, out in the world, though.
Well, check the sewers, based on this movie.
I know, apparently.
And Alligator, which I was just going to mention, I watched not too long ago from early 80s, I think.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. But it's, it's like a baby alligator in the sewers of New York killing people. Great ending.
Aww.
Because the alligator keeps getting bigger and bigger because it's been irradiated by a pharmaceutical lab.
Fun.
And then eventually bursts out through the ground and starts wreaking havoc on the city, which is pretty fun.
That's pretty amazing.
But I think the key is you can't just do Jaws. You got to find something...
Yeah.
A different drop-in point. Like piranha, obviously different kind of creature, very specific. Alligator, very different kind of creature. Setting is very specific. And this one, I think, does it well in picking an animal that I can't say I've seen in a movie that wasn't on the Sci-Fi Channel. Just in general, I feel like you don't get a lot of these movies anymore where it's just like man versus creature. Yeah,
I feel like we went through a brief period where it was sort of man versus nature in the sense of like a weather event or disaster. There was a lot of that kind of going on for a little while. And then, most of these just faded out. They're just not, you don't get your anacondas anymore.
Yeah. Well, because they don't want none.
Right.
Unless you got buns. Hun.
Well, it's been a good run.
Hello? I wonder if part of it is just people are just tired of the one friend that they know that knows animals going, an alligator would never do that.
I will be totally honest. I felt really defensive on behalf of alligators watching this movie where I was like, this is highly unrealistic. Like, alligators would never behave this way. They wouldn't just keep killing humans. Like, they would like kill one and drag it off to eat it somewhere private and then just be like, I'm tired, I'm gonna take a nap.
Thanks, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That's me.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, the writers, I saw a little bit of an interview with them and they talked about that where they were like, this isn't really, alligators don't really do this.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of come up with a reason for them to do that.
Yeah.
Which is why they have the nest sequence.
Yeah.
Where you find the eggs and
that
stuff.
they're being aggressive because they're defending a nest.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Absolutely. And I think when I got, actually, I think even watching this, I had to keep kind of reminding myself to not be a buzzkill and to stop being like, this is highly unrealistic and leave it alone. And then when we got to that nest scene, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you throw in the nest and then like they are also going through a hurricane right now.
Right.
Like,
it's tough on
shit's
everybody.
flooding and they're being like dragged by weird currents they're not used to and people are everywhere stepping on their shit. Like
all of their alligator ATMs are being looted by people.
By annoying humans in boats.
Yeah.
White people with cornrows.
Yes.
Ugh.
But yeah, I'm gonna go right out and say
favorite movie.
Favorite
movie.
This movie. Okay. this is such an interesting movie to me because
This is the one Clay is going to write his dissertation on.
I feel like I could. No, it's so interesting because it's so. I am always impressed by the movies that take a simple concept
Yeah.
and just wring everything you can out of it.
Yes.
And this movie does that
Yeah.
so well.
I really appreciated that about this movie, where to the point where I was almost a little worried, like, what are we going to talk about? Like, it's so straightforward. There's not, because I feel like half of the movies we watch, we end up kind of having to do the, wait a minute, why would so-and-so go there? Where did these people go when this was all happening? Why didn't they just X, Y, and Z? And there's none of that in this one.
Yeah.
Every they do everything they can whenever they can, and what they do makes sense given the situation that they're in, and they're not there just aren't options for them. So they kind of have to move forward as best they can in their circumstances, but it makes for a very elegant movie.
Yeah.
Where there's not a ton of characters you're trying to keep track of. There's not a weird like B plot happening. You're just sitting there with them in these really, really intense, stressful circumstances, watching them get more and more desperate over time as their plans fail.
Right.
And it's so effective. It really makes you tense and kind of wondering like, wait, what the hell are they going to do now?
Yeah, it's, we were talking about the dog, right? And how they don't
talk about that dog all day.
They don't kill the dog.
Thank God.
And I was reading on trivia or wherever that they had been debating whether or not they should kill the dog. And they were saying that, oh well, maybe in the later in the movie the dog sacrifices himself to help save them or something, but it just never felt right.
Yeah.
And they finally came to the conclusion that they set the dog up to look like he's at any point in the movie he's going to get eaten.
Yeah.
And so it's actually better tension to not have him get eaten.
Yeah.
And it's much more relief and catharsis to get them out. And it is this interesting thing where I don't think we had talked about this a little bit before we started, and you said, I was surprised that the dad didn't do something like that.
Yeah, my kind of theory after a little while in this movie was that, because I was also terrified that the dog was going to die, because I am one of those people who cannot handle it when the dog dies. And I was starting to think, oh no, maybe what they're going to do is the opposite, and the father is going to sacrifice himself to save the dog, because the dog is clearly like the only real relationship he has in his life.
Yeah.
Like he can only be like truly open and emotionally connected with this dog. He's driven everyone else in his life away.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought it was going to go that direction. But
yeah. And as we were talking about it, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, well, what's actually kind of nice and unique about this is the way that they set it up, and like what the underlying sort of theme or character drama that is the framing device for this whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is, what's her name?
Haley.
Haley and her dad having this split relationship, and then
Yep.
she has to help him, and blah 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 blah. And you get a couple scenes where they kind of dial it back in the way that all modern horror movies do, so they can talk about their questionable parenting trauma from their past. But
Yes.
like the whole thing, the thing that this movie's doing is not only are they trying to escape the gators, but saving each other and like reconnecting that family bond
Yeah.
is what the whole character thing is about.
Right.
So you really can't afford to kill any of these characters.
Yeah.
Because like if you killed the dad, none of that stuff works. Like
Right.
it doesn't feel like she accomplished anything if
Right.
the dad dies,
Right.
Yeah. And the dog is so intrinsic that it's like if you kill the dog, that doesn't help your case.
Right.
It's about putting their family back together. So if you end the movie with a member of that family off the table, then it's really kind of like a Pyrrhic victory.
Exactly. It kind of it transforms it from a story about people kind of finding their way back to each other into just a sad tragedy, like without sort of any, like you were saying, like emotional catharsis or anything.
Yeah, at that point, like what is she surviving for? It's
right, yeah.
And I think
because one of the main themes of this movie, in addition to the like kind of rebuilding these like familial ties is like the idea of perseverance and not quitting and not giving up. There's lots of coach talk from dad, you know, because he was her swim coach when she was younger.
Right. There's a lot of swimming stuff. I do think, ironically, based on the injuries she gets in this movie, probably never going to swim again.
Her swim career is
probably over.
Yeah,
yes.
competitive swimming is probably off the table, even though I think she beat her record getting to that little boat.
That's true.
But yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on like not giving up. And I think if one of the characters died, I think it would kind of make it like, oh, well, even if you don't give up, you still don't succeed. And that just becomes a very nihilistic movie.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I think that's why the horrible injuries that they sustain actually like really works, because every time that they get grabbed, you think, oh, fuck, this is going to be it.
Right.
But then they survive. And so you continue that climb. Whereas if one of them gets killed, it's like, but you can maim them.
Right.
But as long as they survive, you're still on board.
Yeah, I mean, so the tough thing for me in this movie is that it starts, especially with the dad, Dave, starts so quickly that he is very injured.
Yes.
The fact that he's not completely unconscious for this entire movie is a little like, obviously, again, this is a movie where you have to kind of suspend your disbelief for several reasons. But like, yeah, his leg that he's when she finds him in the basement, he starts off with like his bone popping out of his leg,
that's
and it's
clean
like
break on the shin there.
I just have a feeling you would not be kicking through water at all. So like the fact that he's able to swim and even after wrapping belts around it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, movie magic. He put a splint on.
Yeah.
So he's fine now.
He used his plumbing tool belt.
Yes. I actually didn't even think about the swimming part.
Yeah.
The part where it popped into my head is when...
Or it popped out of your leg.
Popped it out of my leg. is when they're outside the house and he's like standing in the water holding the dog.
Yes.
I was like, he can't be standing on both feet.
No, he shouldn't be supporting his own weight on both legs.
But killer splint, so he's fine.
Yeah.
But like, it's
plumbing is a superpower, I'm telling you.
even the first sequence when she gets to the house, and she gets grabbed by the gator the first time.
Yeah.
You know, kind of rolls her around and stuff, and my girlfriend was in, and I forget what she said, but my response was, oh, she said something like, she must be really injured, right? And at that point, they hadn't done a close-up, and I was like, no, I don't even think it doesn't even look like the gator broke the skin. And then they show a close of her knee, and it's
like
just
kneecaps
like,
out.
yeah, it's just like knives, holes in her leg.
Yes.
That she just, wraps something around. But it's like, I feel like it is a bit much.
Yeah.
But I do think it oddly works.
I'm glad they saved we're just going to rip your arm clean off for the last 20 minutes of the movie.
That's okay. That's the next thing I want to talk about. I actually think the pacing in this movie is fantastic.
Totally agree.
Because apparently there was an opening scene that they didn't shoot where there was another family who ends up getting eaten by gators.
Oh.
And I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm really glad they didn't shoot that. Yeah. Because this actually, it takes a while to get to the gators, but once you get there, it's nonstop. Like it's they dial it all the way up.
Well, and this is the sort of movie where if you've seen any advertising for it, you know there's an alligator.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you know it's coming.
Yeah.
And to make you wait, like, she has to finish swim practice and talk to her sister and drive in the car and get to the condo and then get back in the car and drive to the house and look through the house and get into the basement and crawl around in the basement. And then there's a gator.
Right.
Like, you have to get through all of that first, but you know it's coming. So it's kind of fun, like, waiting for, like, it's going to.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
And, so what did you think about that first 10 or probably like 10 minutes maybe? Yeah. Where it's swim practice, talking to the sister, trying to find the dad. Because I think probably the reason why they originally had that opening scene is because this is a lot of stuff that's very table setting. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of risk boring people by starting your movie with, How come you don't call me anymore? Well,
Right.
Dad and I just haven't been on the same page. You should go call Dad. I don't know. Dad and I aren't really
Where's
talking
Mom?
anymore.
She's in Paris.
Yeah, so you can kind of
Yeah.
risk. You're either kind of gonna get into that as things start falling into place, or you're gonna get bored by it. What do you think?
I liked it. Like, I liked the way it started because I think it sort of functions as getting all of the family stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
Like showing your audience what the basic structure of this family is in a way that felt kind of believable.
Yep.
You know, like she'd been busy at swim practice, so she was ignoring her phone. When she was done and talked to her sister was like, hey, I don't live there anymore, but I know a hurricane is about to hit. What are you doing? Where is Dad? Are you guys safe? You need to tell me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt believable. I think especially after, something like COVID, where there's a lot of like checking in alligators all over the place, and you have to check in with your family and say, did you get sick with the alligator yet?
Yes.
And so I feel like that was effective. I think there were some stilted dialogue bits. There's like a couple moments where she's alone in the car and she's like there's one moment where she like talks to herself in a very like, Dad, if you made me come all this way for nothing, I'm going to be so mad at you. And it's like, that wasn't realistic. And I think maybe the breadcrumbs were a little heavy-handed leading her to the dad. Like, well, there's pictures of you, me, and Mom all over the bed, and I think he went back to the house.
Right.
Like, I think she probably knows her dad well enough that she could have made that leap without needing all the photos spread out on the bed. Maybe if there was just one in a frame of them standing in front of the house that was left on like the kitchen counter, you'd be like, ah, shit, I know where he went.
Yeah.
Like, so some of it felt a little heavy-handed, but overall I liked it because I think it gave you kind of a good shorthand for what kind of person she was, what her relationship with her dad and her sister and her mom is like, without having to stop the action once you got into it as much as you would have otherwise.
Yeah, it is all forward driving.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And you've got the hurricanes getting worse and worse. And so it's not just people standing around.
And she runs into Wayne, the cop.
Yeah, I blame Wayne for all of this. Because if Wayne had just been like, okay, let's go see if we can find your dad.
Yeah.
Then everything would have been fine. But
I mean, fucking Wayne.
Wayne's a bad cop.
This is why Beth dumped you, Wayne.
That's why he got eaten.
Aww.
Yeah, the family stuff I think works pretty well. I think you get into trouble a little bit because I roll my eyes when these movies force this. Like this one I think works because it's kind of the undercurrent of the whole thing. I start to roll my eyes.
Was that a water pun?
No, actually, I didn't intend to do that. But I start to roll my eyes in movies sometimes where it's like, okay, we're at like the halfway point. Let's all sit around and talk about.
Let's have our emotional monologue to each other.
I think this one handles that stuff pretty well. Yeah. Except for the second one. Like the first one where they kind of have the reconnecting about the swimming or whatever, and they address that stuff. That's fine.
Yep.
The second one, when he's had his arm bitten off, they're trying to get up to the roof while the waters come up, and he's like, "Wait a minute,
I have to tell you,
I lied to you. I couldn't sell the house." I'd be like, "Dad, now is not the time.
Yeah, Dad, shut up.
Save this for the hospital because we're gonna be there for a while."
Yeah.
So I think I guess you gotta bring closure to that stuff in some form, but that one was a little clunky, but otherwise I thought it worked pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's tough because you understand why you want that stuff in there because the emotional journey of these characters is important to the movie. Otherwise, it's just like some made up people got eaten by an alligator.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
I would be really interested to do like a side-by-side comparison of, let's say, maybe 3 really good horror movies from the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And 3 really good horror movies from, let's say, like, I don't know, the mid-70s through the mid-80s. Because I feel like so many of them now do weave this varying degrees of effective or heavy-handed I mean, it's technically I guess you call it character stuff, character work. But like, and in a way that feels so different from the way that they used to. Like, there's no moment in John Carpenter's The Thing where McCready's like, Childs, I'm really hope I get out of here because I just haven't seen my daughter in 20 years. And that's really the thing that's driving me to deal with this, because the reason I'm down here is because I drove drunk and I killed my wife.
Right. Laurie Strode doesn't need to explain how badly she wants to grow up and become an elementary school teacher and go to college and meet a nice boy and have 3 kids.
Yeah, the Evil Dead. So Evil Dead's a really interesting example. Because they remade Evil Dead in 2013. And the original Evil Dead, 5 people? Yeah, 5 people at a cabin.
Yep.
Open a book they shouldn't open. Get harassed by demons, to put it lightly.
Yes, yeah.
Casually harassed. Bunch of demons
just some
protesting
light,
outside.
Yeah. Some
Can't
light
finish
trolling.
their steaks.
Yeah.
And it works so effectively. And then you've got Evil Dead the remake, and it's the same setup. But have you seen it?
The remake?
Yeah.
No.
We should watch it at some point.
Okay.
You have the same setup, but there's this underlying story of one of the people who are there. The reason they're at the cabin is to help this one guy's sister kick heroin. And so there's like a detox thing, which like plays
there's an
into
addiction metaphor,
which plays into the corruption of the demon kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, sure, I guess this, adds some more texture to stuff, but like, do I really need solid closure to the heroin story before someone pulls out a chainsaw and starts kicking ass? Like, not really. So it would be interesting to do a comparison to see, like, what is it that makes these modern movies all do that, where the old ones never felt like it was necessary.
I think part of it, not to get too meta and away from Crawl, my sort of just thinking about it on the fly right now, my initial theory is that part of it is that so many of the modern movies that we would consider good, like good indie horror movies or just good horror movies from the last 10-ish years, thinking about like Hereditary or Get Out or Midsommar, like stuff like that, is that it's a movie more about things like grief and family and racism and these big kind of huge thematic issues, whereas I think some of the older horror movies kind of play on the innocence and the sort of like, this could be anybody. They didn't deserve this. There's nothing different or unusual about these people. They just were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right.
And I think those are an exception because I think it's one of those things where it's like that form became popular, and so it has sort of disseminated down into other movies. And I kind of, as I'm talking about this, I feel like I'm criticizing screenwriters for wanting to add more character into their horror movies, which I'm not trying to do. But it all more often than not, it feels a little bit formulaic.
Yeah.
And where it's like, does a movie like Crawl, like The Babadook, I don't think works without that subtext of grief
motherhood
and
all of that. Yeah.
Does Crawl still work if there's no family stuff? Probably.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's the difference, is sort of like knowing which of these buckets your movie falls into more. Yeah. Like, this one is more of a monster movie or a disaster movie. It's more of, these people were just, they happened to live where this storm happened to hit, and there happened to be alligators nearby. It's not anything that they did wrong to deserve this.
Right.
They're not complicit in this disaster. It just occurred to them.
Yeah.
Whereas in, I think, some of the more modern movies, it's kind of like, how are we culpable for the things that happen to each other, and what do we owe each other? And it's those kinds of questions. Whereas this one's more just like, and I think both are equally as interesting because both are equally as true.
Sure.
Like, sometimes we do things that are bad or wrong, and we bring trouble and problems on ourselves. other times shit just happens.
Right.
There happens to be an alligator in your basement that you didn't know about, and that's not your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is something that is I've found fairly interesting looking, and I'm not the first person to talk about the change, obviously, but you think about something like Night of the Living Dead, which is held up as such a like the gold standard of the horror movie with a message.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but also if you look at that movie, there's no message. Like,
right. They never sit down and have a long conversation about how it's really about racism.
Right. Or it's like really about communism or whatever else people implant or overlay onto it.
Exactly.
So it is interesting to see these modern movies being a lot more explicit with it. And I think where they get into trouble are the ones where they take the time to explain it as though it's like shit anybody cares about. Like this one, like I said, this one is okay. But when you have that one scene where it's like, let's stop everything so I can tell you what the secondary twist that the screenwriting book told me I needed, I can put in here so I could be like, wait a minute, actually, the picture that you had from a child when you were a child is actually a picture of your grandmother, not your mother. And it's like, cool. Can we keep running?
Can we keep running away? Yeah. It's tough because a lot of it, I actually feel a lot of sympathy with the writers for, because I think sometimes it's the whole kill your darlings thing where it's like, you've come up with so much material. You know this character inside and out. You know them so well. And they have all of these complex emotional motivations and all of these things happening in their life that have made them behave the way they are, and it feels like it's hard to edit yourself down from some of that. And it's hard to let some of that go when you're like, no, but I think it's really important that people know this about this character. Like, Haley's dad Dave seems kind of like an asshole, and maybe like he was a bad parent and a bad husband, and maybe he kind of deserves this. like he's a shitty guy and he's gonna die in a basement. But
Jesus.
But you know what I mean? Like, and then I'm the writer and I say,
no, going hard on Dave.
But if you're the writer, you might say, but I don't want my audience to think that. I want them to know these things about him, that he mourns the family he's lost, and he blames himself for the dissolution of his marriage, and he feels like he wasn't a good enough dad, and this is how I'm going to tell the audience all this stuff. Right. And it's like, no, you can show us all that stuff with the fact that he won't give up. He wants to get his daughter out of here. Like, we can see from his behavior in the movie that as gruff and kind of rude as he can be at times, he loves his daughter a lot, and he's going to do everything he can to save her. So I think that's where it starts to feel superfluous, because it's like, we don't need to hear all of that because we're already seeing better proof than any dramatic speech he might give once his arm's been ripped off.
And it's also a weird place to put that element too, because when she gets there and she's like, why are you still here? Didn't you sell the house?
Yeah. And
he's like, I'm just trying to fix stuff up. My first thought was, where are the new owners of the house?
Right.
And so when they dropped that info later, it's like, well, okay, why didn't I don't feel like him. I mean, I guess he's a really guarded kind of guy and doesn't want to, so he's holding it. But like, if he had said that at the beginning, does it change anything?
Even if it had just been like they hadn't sold the house yet. Yeah.
It was in escrow, right? So
yeah.
We bought this place 10 years ago. I forget what that word means.
I don't even know.
I still am not totally sure.
I'm not rich enough to know what that word means.
Yeah. But yeah, one of the things I mentioned, the pacing. I think the pacing of this, all brief stops to talk about feelings aside, is very good, because this is the rare movie where I think the last 15 minutes are the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
And there's a podcast, a screenwriting podcast that I dip into every now and then. I think it's just called Write Your Screenplay.
Oh.
Screenwriters, I don't know, something like that. Sorry for the terrible plug. And this one episode I was listening to, the host was talking about this idea that when you have like a suspense screenplay, or really any screenplay, with kind of like a high concept, anything that can happen should happen. And I think this is a really great example of that, because it's like it really goes down the list of all the possible things that could happen regarding this situation they're in with the alligators and the flooding, and the looters show up and blah 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 blah. And the way that they lay it out is just so satisfying, because after you get this like 10 minutes of kind of build up, alligator shows up. Oh geez, she gets hurt right away.
Yep.
And so they're both hurt, blah 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 blah. Most movies, you don't see a second gator till like minute 70.
Yeah.
The second gator shows up like 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
And then after that, the gators keep showing up.
Right.
So there's more gators right away.
Yep.
The water's coming up.
Yep.
Right. They're doing the flashlight thing.
Every time another person shows up, they get eaten by a gator.
They keep getting, they keep almost getting out. And then they finally get out of the building, and it's like, okay, well, is this going to be like Speed, where once they get off the train or once they get off the bus, it kind of like loses steam here?
Yeah.
They get the boat. It's like, all right.
The levee then breaks.
Now they got a boat, and then the fucking levee breaks, and this giant tidal wave throws them through the front window back into the house.
I do love when she kind of gets her bearings back in the house and is just like, you've got to be fucking
it's
kidding
so good.
me.
And then everything that they experienced in the basement
Yep.
is now transferred to the next 3 floors of the house.
Yes.
As the water keeps rising, the
Yep.
gators are coming into the house.
Yep.
They're doing like floor is lava type parkour.
Yes, yeah, she's climbing on the sink in the kitchen and trying to jump over to the table.
They get the great moment in the bathroom where she lures the alligator into the shower and then jumps over the thing.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, it just keeps coming. Right. And you get that moment when they come out and you think it's like, all right, well, what else are we going to do here? And then it's like, and they click it up even further.
Yeah.
And it's just such a great fun. And then the dad gets his arm bitten off. It's just such a great.
And you see it. Like, it's not it's not just like an alligator clamps down and then moves away and the arm is gone. It's like the alligator gets him, twists and twists and pulls, and there it goes.
Yes, he should have died very shortly.
Yeah, he should have just gone into shock. And
it was
died
like it was like a Pennywise attack.
Yeah, it was.
But it's just such a tense, fast-paced, satisfying climax to the movie where they're racing, trying to outrun this flood.
Yeah,
it's so good.
And I actually think it's kind of great that there's no like blatant commentary about climate change and like sea level rise and all of the things it could have gone into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need that. Like, we all know hurricanes happen, and we all know that they're bad and they've been getting worse in recent years. Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing that actually makes this movie feel weirdly believable.
Yeah.
It's because we live in a world where, these storms do happen. Whole houses do get swallowed up.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel at any point like, oh, come on, that's just ridiculous. Like, they would have gotten rescued by now. It was like, no, Hurricane Katrina happened a long time ago now, and people spent days waiting for rescue.
Yeah. It was really interesting to see, actually, all that stuff, because even now when I hear about flooding like that, I can't really wrap my mind around it. Because, like, the amount of water that would be required to lift, like, to get that deep up on a house.
Yeah.
I start thinking, like, well, I mean, how far does it spread? Like, what's the containing it so it starts lifting? So to actually see it, be like, okay, now I kind of understand how this can happen.
And you see it from kind of the beginning. When she gets there, it's just rain. Like, it's really heavy rain, but it is still just rain. And then you sort of see the gradual, like, now it's this, now it's this, now it's this. And then if you live somewhere where there are something like levees or a dam nearby, if those don't hold, then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, so now you have all this other water that's just going to come in, and this is how it's going to behave, and this is what it's going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was looking up some stuff, and I was watching the behind-the-scenes thing. I don't know why I didn't think about that. I thought about it a bit more this time, because the first time I was just so engaged with what was going on. They built that house inside a giant water tank.
That is fascinating.
So they had this I think they were shooting in like Croatia or something. And they had this big factory building that they essentially turned into a gigantic water tank. And they literally built like that whole corner of the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
And so they shot all the exterior stuff by flooding that thing.
Wow.
And then, if I remember correctly, they basically took that set down and then rebuilt each floor separately.
Okay.
So they would shoot the first floor, take that down, build the second floor,
Yeah.
take that down, do the roof and that kind of thing. And it was just unbelievable, because that's another thing.
awesome.
I started thinking, like, what? It didn't even occur to me, how do you do this? Because it's not like you can't fake it. It's not like you can all CGI water or something.
Right. Yeah. A, that would cost a huge amount of money, and also B, it would look like garbage.
Yeah.
Like you'd be able to tell.
And I guess in the basement too, they built the whole basement and flooded the whole thing.
Wow.
The actress who plays
Haley.
The actress who plays Haley.
There are only 2 people in this movie, Clay.
Names don't matter. They don't. The one thing that I'll never forget is I saw Albert Brooks talking about his biggest pet peeve in screenwriting, and he says it's when characters call each other by their names in movies, because nobody does that in real life.
That's true.
They do it so much in movies.
Yeah.
Nobody does it in real life.
Yeah, that does drive me nuts when I'm watching or reading stuff, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, Clay, did you
It's
hear?"
weird because it's like a rhythm thing. Like when you're writing it, it feels natural to be like, I don't know about that, Amanda, blah, 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 blah. But if we were talking, I probably wouldn't say that.
Probably not.
Unless I was trying to be really condescending. But, the actress who plays Haley was saying that the basement set that they built was really difficult to move around in when there was no water in it, because it's literally like a 4-foot basement that you're kind of crawling. Once they put the water in, it became so much easier to move around because you could just swim everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was funny because they had showed her talking about it, and she was like, it was awful. It smelled. Apparently, I saw this multiple places on IMDb, so they were really making sure this info got out. The water was filtered 6 times a day. It was very clean water. Yeah. It was constantly kept at the temperature between like 84 and 100 degrees. Mm-hmm. So they went out of their way to make sure everything was clean, everything was safe. Yeah. And she was like, it was awful. I mean, they did a really good job keeping things clean, but it really smelled down there.
Yeah.
You're in water for 10 hours a day. And then they cut to Barry Pepper, and he's like, it was awesome, because you're just like in it. You can't fake that stuff. So you're just like in there, and it was really cool.
Oh, that's really funny.
But yeah, I think it's just, the thing, they also know where to, they know what the bread and butter of this movie is. Yeah. And so you don't have, and I guarantee you this probably would have happened in another version of this movie, where after they get to the roof, you get a scene at like a hospital or some shit, and they're touching hands and being crying. Right. This one, old school movie making. They get to the top, hit the flare, you see the helicopter, end of movie.
Yep, they made it. They made it. They're out. They're gonna make it. They're gonna live.
Yep. Yeah.
It's just like, that's all you need to know. You don't need the mom flies back from Paris and comes to visit them in the hospital.
You don't need to have the sister show up, because I mean she's states away anyway. But yeah. How did you feel about the alligators themselves? Because they're all CGI. Yeah. There's no practical alligators. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I thought they looked pretty good. Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised, because I think I was kind of ready for them to look a little more janky. Yeah. And they looked pretty good. I found like the way they moved like believable. Like they didn't look. Do you know what I mean? Like because sometimes CG things look fine when they're still, and then when they move, it's like, oh no. And these ones, they looked pretty good. There were moments, I think, especially when they were above water, there were moments where it was like kind of easier to tell that this was like computer generated, but a lot of the like underwater scenes when they're swimming more in a more natural way, I think they looked pretty good. I think they're great monsters because when you think about an alligator, it's like what they've been the same since the time of the dinosaurs. Yeah. Like they're extremely perfectly evolved to do what they do. Mm-hmm. And so it makes them really frightening. And they have that sort of like the similar thing that like a shark does, which is just like a big mouth, lots of sharp teeth, and like tiny beady little scary eyes. Right. Which makes them really intimidating. And I have to say, I loved the log gag
Oh, yes.
When she's like up in one of the bedrooms or maybe even the attic or something, and a log pops up, and it does actually look like an alligator
the knot that
initially.
looks like the eye, yeah.
And it got me. I was like, oh, yep, there it is. Oh, nope, that's a piece of wood.
Yeah.
It was like, I liked that. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. I'm always going to go to bat and for more practical stuff.
Yeah.
But in this, honestly, I think for the most part, I think they look good enough that in the movie is convincing enough in the story that it's telling.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of down for it for after the first couple shots. Like,
yeah.
Because they look... You get enough of them in the basement where it's dark.
I was just going to say that.
And there's lots of shadows. So
Yeah.
it's not really exposing the computer aspect too much.
Right.
But I think your brain kind of like adjusts.
Yeah. I think even later when you see them outside, there's enough rain going on that sort of softens the visuals of it, that it kind of helps mask a little bit of like the unnaturalness of it being computers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
I was a little surprised they didn't do any practical stuff though, because there was a few close-ups and stuff where I was like, you can't do that with like a model. You know, you couldn't build an alligator head just to do like the eye or something.
Yeah, or even some footage of them just swimming.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Like kind of how in Jaws, to compare it back to Jaws again. Right. You know, there's footage of real sharks just kind of swimming, and then they kind of cut it in clever ways to.
Yeah, get some stock footage of a alligator swimming through someone's living room.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially for a couple shots where it's like if you're getting Haley and then like a close up of the thing opening at her or something.
Yeah.
It's like, it goes a long way if you have like a real puppet.
Right.
To do that, but I didn't find it too distracting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It wasn't. I think not finding it too distracting is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I feel like we kind of hit everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like what have we glossed over, because I'm sure we've glossed over something.
How did you feel about I really liked the sequence where and my mind's working, so I'm backing up a couple places. Two things.
Yes.
One, I don't think she tried nearly hard enough to open that trap door on the floor.
Yeah, that part did seem a little like, really, you couldn't kind of wiggle it a little, like push on one side and not the other, or like really, I don't know.
Yeah. But I did think that the scene where the water's rising on the dad and he's like up against the floorboards and she's trying to find him. And I thought that was really good. That was really effective.
Yeah, I did too. I honestly, that's when I thought he was going to die. Like I honestly thought he was going to die and stay dead, and she was going to be alone with the alligators and the dog. Yeah. And it was going to be a story about just her and the dog making it out.
I think there's a different version of the movie where that happens. I think because I just think that family stuff is such the underpinning of everything that you really can't kill him off. But I think
having it in the house where, you know, the family does not live anymore, but it's like his whole, like when he does his whole dramatic speech and he's like, this is the last place we were a family, it's the last place we were all happy together. Like, yeah, if you're gonna set this movie there, you can't then kill him off.
Yeah, I think the change where you can kill him off is, what is Haley trying to do? Right?
Yeah.
And here she's trying to put her family back together.
Yeah.
But I think there's another version where, and that's still in this movie somewhere, where it's more that she's trying to actively break away from that.
Yeah.
Because they do have this relationship where he's kind of this overbearing, you know, stage dad, sports dad.
Yeah.
And I can see a version where it's like...
You don't think it's good to tell your child that they're the apex predator?
Oh, why not? I mean... You gotta
Is
make
that
sure.
what you whisper quietly to your dog?
It's what I whisper. It's what I would whisper to my child if I really wanted to make sure they got the candy from the Halloween candy bowl before any of the other kids did. But like I think there's a version where it's more her father is this kind of albatross.
Yeah.
To use another aquatic reference.
All the nautical themed references, yeah.
And she just wants to unfurl her sails and cast off towards the horizon of her life.
Oh, God. I think we've reached the end of this one.
What side is port?
I believe it's left.
Is it left? I've
Yes.
never been. I learned once a long time ago. Couldn't tell you in a million years.
Oh, I have a boating license in New Hampshire.
That you just have to. You do that on the internet. I don't
No,
know if
I
it's
had
the-
to. I had to
Oh, you
go.
had to do the full
I
thing?
had to
Oh,
go
okay.
to a class. I had to show up and take a test.
Oh, okay. Because years ago,
Get
like,
up out of here.
maybe I guess it was probably like 15 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
The only thing you need to do to get a boating license in New Hampshire is go to the website and answer like a multiple choice test. Because one time our friend Jim and his then girlfriend were going up and they wanted to rent jet skis, and you couldn't do that without a boating license. So he went onto the website and got a boating license in about 15 minutes.
I feel cheated.
Yeah, well, you know what side port is. He probably doesn't know what side port is. So
Fair. Okay.
starboard, up,
No.
maybe? No? Front.
No.
What is it?
It's right.
Aft.
It's the back.
That makes sense.
Fore and aft.
She got a great aft.
Good night, everyone.
You started this.
I did not.
What were we talking about?
Crawl.
Crawl. Yeah, I think there's a version where if she's trying to set herself free from her family, where
Cut anchor.
cut bait. Where maybe the dad dies and that's like a
It's more
threshold
about
crossing
her
of-
becoming
yeah.
her own adult person and
Yeah.
learning to live without him kind of deal.
I'm glad it's not though, because
Yeah.
I think it's, especially with all the shit that the three of them go through, it's nice to see them come out the other end. I don't know how much we talked about this on the Friday the 13th series, but how do you feel about multiple survivors not this, because we talked about this one, it's a different thing, but like slasher movies.
Sure.
How do you feel about multiple survivors?
I'm fine with it if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if there's a logical reason or a plot-based reason why there's more than one, I'm totally fine with it. In fact, I think in some cases it makes a lot more sense to have it that way, especially in some of the slashers where it's like you're fighting Freddy Krueger or you're fighting Jason or whoever, and it's like, how does one human defeat that thing?
That's the whole question. That's the whole story.
I know it is, but so then when there's more than one, I'm like, yes, of course, because they needed to help each other.
Cheating.
Yes, cheating. Yes. Sure. I'm fine with calling it cheating, but like that story-wise makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think in a similar way, like this makes sense.
You just don't
to
like
me
a
too.
fair fight.
God, no.
You don't want to see. You want to see two normal people taking on a sleep demon. Single sleep demon all by himself. He doesn't bring friends.
I don't look, Clay. I don't know who told you life is fair, but it's not.
Yeah, it's a something Fred Krueger knows all too well. Wait, no, he was a child killer.
I was gonna say,
Fuck that
you
guy.
are so like coming down hard on the side of the questionably pedophilic serial killer.
Everybody deserves an attorney. Everybody deserves a defense.
Clay, attorney at law.
Yeah, I'm always on the fence. I feel like as years went on, it seemed like there were routinely more survivors. Like once you get into like the 90s and the 2000s, anytime they had a movie like this, it's always like, oh,
Right.
there's 4 people made it out.
Well,
This
yeah,
one,
I mean,
nobody
look
dies.
at Scream.
Yeah, Scream.
You know?
Scream. There's like 15 people in the movie, and like 10 of them survive.
Right. Yeah. And that's a lot. But like in this one, this one I'm fine with it because it makes sense to me. Like I think we've been saying this whole time. Part of the character development in this is them realizing I'm not going to leave you behind.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to do everything. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to give up on getting us out of here. We're in this together. Like that's part of the point of this movie. So it makes sense to me very much in this movie. Mm-hmm. In some other movies, I'm always a little bit like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But this time I'll allow it.
Final question.
Yes.
Do you think Haley's sister is going to be sad when she finds out Wayne got eaten by an alligator?
You know, I would say I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. She seems like a nice person.
She seems like a pretty decent person.
Yeah.
She seems like caring.
Yeah.
What does Haley call her? Empathetic from a distance?
Yes. best way to be.
That's a really harsh insult.
Yes,
that's,
it is.
That's the kind of thing that only siblings would
Well,
know to say to each other. And I kind of
scene-
was like, I buy it now.
That
Yeah.
scene was nice because she says some really cutting shit, and then
Yeah.
they're like, "All right, I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye." And they're like,
Yeah,
"Love you."
yeah.
Like, that
it's
seems
yep.
accurate.
I've had those conversations with my brother,
Yeah.
my older brother.
This is, as I said before, number 127 on our list. How do you feel about the placement? Too high, too low? Should it be removed?
I mean, I'm kind of surprised it's all the way at 127.
That being
Like
low?
I would expect it to be closer to like the 150s, the 160s,
Oh, I see.
the
Okay.
170s.
Sure. Sure.
Like if it had been between 150 and 200, I would have been less surprised.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I actually think I'm pretty content with it being on the list. Because I do think, like we were saying, there aren't a lot of good examples of sort of more modern versions of these kinds of like monster movies. So it's nice to see it on there. But yeah, it sort of surprises me that it's all the way at 127.
Yeah, I would agree. 127 feels kind of high.
Yeah, because I mean, we've had things like, I always keep coming back to the fact that wasn't Black Christmas kicked all the way off the list at some point? Or
Black Christmas is such a travesty of location because I don't think it's on the list anymore. Don't quote me on that. But, so for reference, at 126 we have The Exorcist.
Yeah, come on, that's a mistake.
Yeah. 125 we have The Invitation. 124 is some movie I've never heard of.
Oh, I've heard of that one. That one sounds
have you seen it?
I have not seen it, but I know the story it's based off of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Number 123 is 1922, which is a Stephen King thing I've never heard of.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. 128 is Come to Daddy, starring Elijah Wood.
Oh.
Don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
129 is Creepy. Never heard of that. 130 is The Omen.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
131 is Doctor Sleep. So it's buoyed by some pretty big ones.
Yeah. So it's kind of surprising that it's.
You didn't pick up on that one.
I did. I'm ignoring it. Trying to discourage you. I'm just cutting you adrift on these metaphors. But yeah, it's a surprising spot.
Chum.
Are you just gonna start saying
Start
words?
saying vocabulary.
Gunnel.
Ooh, I don't know.
Mast.
That one. Mast. What do they call that thing? The lady that they put on the front of the boat. I'm sure that has a name.
Oh my god, I know that has a name and I can't think of it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, this list continues to be baffling, but 127 feels.
If you told me this was 187, I'd be like, yeah,
yes,
absolutely,
yeah, and that's also not to take anything away from it though, because it's
No.
I think it's a really solid. Like I would say this is like a high end B movie.
Yes,
which it's very satisfying.
Yep.
Like we said, takes simple premise, wrings everything can out of it.
Yep.
Get in, get out, bingo, bango, alligators. Good way to spend a Saturday night.
Right. We're still talking about keeping this movie on the list of 200 best horror movies of all time.
Yes.
That's a pretty high bar to meet. So I think putting it lower on the list, closer to 200, is like fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, if you go too low, then it feels bad. But if it's like, ahoy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say if you go too low, when you come back up, you have to do it slowly.
If depending on how much this changes, Crawl might end up with the bends.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I got to stop
Yeah,
this.
we have to go.
I hit the randomizer button, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, and we landed on number 69.
Nice.
Which is Train to Busan.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen Train to Busan?
No, because my husband watched it without me one time. Which is a weird sentence to say, considering he's the one who doesn't like horror movies.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Momentarily possessed.
Yeah.
It's my only
Anyway,
explanation.
very good.
I'm excited.
Very good movie.
Very excited.
So that's what we'll be doing in a couple weeks. Thank you guys for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/thepensky file, where you can sign up for our Patreon and listen to us talk about the second string of Stephen King movies. We talk about the Stephen King adaptations that are not quite as highly regarded as some of the ones that are on our actual list here.
Yes.
And we also have 12 full episodes of us covering the entirety of the Friday the 13th series that you can listen to. There's so much stuff on there. Go on a really long trip or walk your dog multiple times during the day, and we can accompany you the entire time. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Clay.
And we'll see you next time.
Ahoy, hoy.